Check 1, 2. Sorry about that. We'll start again. And welcome to everyone joining us today, both in person and by live stream, for this celebration of the life of Gregory Norman Johnston. In these times, it was important to the family that you all be safe, and for that reason, we opted to have only the immediate family present and have the rest of you join us remotely. We hope you understand. For those who don't know, I am Danny Johnston, son of Greg and Cheryl. I am honored to host this program in the cherished memory of my father. This task won't be easy, so please bear with me as I may struggle at times to get through these proceedings. I thank you for understanding. Many of you have sent kind condolences to the family, for which we would like to thank you, as your thoughts and best wishes helped get us through a very difficult period. We would also like to make special mention of the following people for going above and beyond for Mom and the family. For sending flowers, a very special thank you to Betty and Jim Johnson, Shirley Schroeder, Del Hoffman, Ray Schroeder and families, Doris Johnston and family, Nicole Stricker, Andrea Michelle, and Kim Canning, Margaret Johnston and family, and Houston Pizza, East Regina. For sending food, sincere gratitude to Elaine Moroshowski, to Houston Pizza, East Regina, to Kelsey Richot, and to the Geberza family for sending food to us while we were staying with Dad in the hospital. We can't thank you all enough for your support. I am pleased to note that we are holding this program in the home of Mom and Dad. It feels somehow most appropriate. Dad loved this home, and he always felt so much at ease here. We had so many warm and receptive family gatherings under this roof. So many family members' birthdays, holiday occasions, movie nights, graduations, important, and I can't understate this, important live televised sports events, heated trivia contests, wine drinking marathons, and impromptu drop-ins were had in this home. Dad welcomed every one of these occasions. And as we move through this program, his spirit is very much here with us. We are all comforted by the reminders of his openness and generosity which never wavered. He always wanted this home to be the entire family's home, and it truly has been. At this time, I would like to acknowledge those who are here in person today. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge Cheryl, Dad's wife of more than 50 years. Mom has always been a pillar of strength, and never more so than when Dad fell ill, and then very ill. Thank you, Mom, for always taking such good care of Dad, especially over the past several months. Next, Dad's daughter, my sister, Christy. Thank you, Christy, for always doing so much for Dad, especially when he needed it most. We're also very happy to have all of Dad's grandchildren here today. Bailey and McKenna Hare, and Adria and Alia Johnston. I also want to thank Penny Erickson, a very close friend of Christy's, for being here and offering her support. And finally, I just want to say a special thank you to Virginia Voles for helping with the live broadcast of this program so that all of you at home may share in this special occasion. I would now like to read Dad's obituary. We are saddened to announce the passing of a dear husband, father, and grandfather on October 21st, 2021, at the Wascana Rehabilitation Center in Regina, Saskatchewan. Greg was predeceased by his parents, Harvey and Merle Johnston, and his brother, Alan Johnston. Greg is survived by his wife of 50 years, Cheryl Johnston, son, Danny Johnston, daughter, Christy Johnston, son, Corey and Janelle Johnston, and grandchildren, Bailey Hare, Adria Johnston, McKenna Hare, and Alia Johnston. Greg was born on March 20th, 1946, in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. He was the youngest of two children. They moved to Maymont, Saskatchewan when Greg was 1 year old. Greg started his career as a banker out of high school, and in 1969 he joined the Bank of BC, where he lived and worked for 3 years. Greg met his future wife while coaching a girls' financial softball league in Regina. Shrewd. Take note, single men out there. Cheryl would follow him back to BC, where they got married on April 10th, 1971, and moved back to Regina in 1972. Greg was highly respected at the credit union, where he worked for most of his career. It was here he met lifelong friends whom he spent years curling with in a financial league. He curled in Bonspiels in Regina, out of town, and numerous infamous Wilkie trips. For countless years, Greg would spend Friday afternoons with friends at the Crown and Hand pub. Even the grandkids knew not to ask for rides or favors on Fridays, as he would be busy with the old boys club. Greg was known to always have a baseball or football game on, especially if the Rough Riders or Blue Jays were playing. He attended many games over the years, including traveling to watch baseball games in numerous stadiums. Greg spent his retirement traveling with his wife, gardening, going for walks, helping his in-laws, reading countless books, and was infamous for always helping his kids and grandkids. He always said it gave him purpose. He loved family get-togethers at his house, and he truly loved having his family around. Our heartfelt appreciation goes out to the staff at the General Hospital, Pasqua Hospital, and Wascana Rehab for their kindness in his final days. Thank you, Christy, for putting that together. I think it summed up Dad very well. Well, at this time, I would like to introduce our first guest speaker. Norm Drummond was a longtime close friend of Dad's with whom they shared many adventures. Norm will share some stories in a pre-recorded video. We will now play Norm's address.
Sherilyn family, I'd like to offer you condolences from Pat and I and our family on the passing of Greg. This is a very sad time for you and all of us. There are a lot of happy times, though, in our past association, and I'd like to recall a couple of those. I guess Greg and I met in the mid-70s when we were working at Credit Union Central. And this is quite a while ago. In fact, it's so long ago that Greg had dark hair at the time. There's a lot of stories that we have that relate to the doctor and some of the things he said and did. In fact, one of the stories is about how he got the name the doctor, which he was called by many people. It seems that in the mid-70s, there was a basketball player called Julius Erving, who was given by some of the pundits at the time the nickname Dr. J. And well, since Johnston starts with J, I guess Darcy Rue started calling Greg Dr. J, which of course we shortened to the doctor. And he was widely known as the doctor. As a matter of fact, it was such a common name for him that wasn't unusual to be curling and have some curler come up to him and say, looking for some medical advice, and the doctor wisely chose not to give him any medical advice because I don't think that would go well. The doctor had an excellent sense of humor and very quick with a quip. In fact, it left me speechless more than once. And one of those occasions was when Pat and I and Cheryl and Greg were doing some curling on Friday nights in a mixed league. And we were sitting getting ready for the game, and we're sitting at the table, and I looked at the clock and said, well, it's time to go. It's time to get my game face on. Immediately, the doctor says, you have another face and you keep using this one? Not a lot to be said in response to that. In our 35 plus years of curling and bonspiels and league curling and whatever, there was a lot of occasions that we had so much fun and enjoyed our company. One of those occasions was probably about 7 years ago when it would have been the last Regina Men's Bonspiel that we curled in together. And on Friday night, I said to the boys, I don't drink that much, so why don't I be the designated driver tomorrow, and I'll come and pick you up and I'll deliver you home. And they thought this was a hell of a good idea, so that's what we did. Saturday morning, I went around and scooped them all up, took them to the rink. We played a couple of games. After our last game around 2 o'clock, we're sitting in the Cali Club bar, and the boys are having some beers, just like I suspected might happen. So around 7:30, after a few hours and a few more beers, we went out for pizza and more beer. And then I took them home. The next morning, we're at the curling club, and I'm feeling just dandy, and in walks the doctor. He's not feeling really dandy. So I, of course, asked him, how are you feeling? He says, terrible, and it's your fault. I was a little bit of a loss to figure out why it was my fault, so naturally I said, well, why is it my fault? He said, well, if you hadn't been the designated driver, I'd been driving myself, and I wouldn't have been drinking so much, and I wouldn't feel so bad. So I guess there was really no arguing with that kind of logic. The doctor was many things, but one of the things he was to many of us was just a good friend. An example of being such a good friend that I recall and am ever so grateful to him for was about 40 years ago, Pat and I had entered down the road of adoption. And the process included getting some references that would speak positively about me and Pat. And I asked Doctor and Cheryl if they would do this, and they agreed to do that. It was a rigorous process. There was a written segment, and there was interviews, but they did that for us. Now that's what a good friend does. Rest assured that Greg is gone, but he will be remembered with a smile. It's hard not to think of Greg and the things he said and the things he did without smiling and having a positive attitude. So thank you for letting me speak to you today.
Thank you for those reflections, Norm. We all appreciate that you could be part of this celebration. Well, as we alluded to earlier, Dad always had a very special place in his heart for his grandchildren. He built an entire play center in his backyard for them when they were little. He was always on call for free taxi rides, and the cab requests came often. And when he had to step in and be a parental figure in their lives, he never faltered. Dad's grandchildren were always a priority for him, and no demand was too great when it came from them. He wouldn't have it any other way. I would like to bring up the grandchildren two at a time. Firstly, I will ask that Bailey and McKenna Hare please come up.
I don't really know where to begin when it comes to describing what my grandpa meant to me. He was always there for me to help with anything, to listen to whatever stories I had that day that I always thought were way funnier than they actually were, but he'd still laugh along with me anyways. He would always pick me up and drive me to work, school, friends' houses and hangouts, etc., and he never once complained. He told my mom one time that he enjoyed our car rides because he got to see me more. When I got my first car, he was so worried about me driving it in the winter, so he went and bought me a new set of all-season tires that honestly probably saved my life more than once. He was someone I always knew was just a phone call or a quick drive away. I always knew I could rely on Grandpa for anything. He was just that great of a guy. Grandpa wasn't much for the big hugs or the sappy, I love you so much spiels, but once in a while I'd still try and I'd get a kick out of the various faces and awkward responses I'd get back, or the classic pat on the back. I don't want to get all corny now, but Grandpa inspired me a lot in his final weeks/months of life. He never let go of his hope. Grandpa was the strongest person I think I've ever met. Even at his worst, he still made sure to make other people smile with his funny one-liners and sarcastic responses. I'm so grateful to have had someone as a healthy father figure in my life like Grandpa was. That's the best it could get. The relationship I wish I could have had with my dad growing up, I got to have with him, and I'm so grateful to him for that. I know he's still watching over us all, and now he's helping guide us on our crazy paths through life, just in a different way than he always did before. Thank you, Grandpa, for all that you did for all of us and for being the inspirational, kind, funny, and amazing person you always were. There won't be a day that you're not missed. I hope they have baseball in heaven for you.
Hello, I'm Bailey here, my grandfather's grandson. My grandfather is a great man, always had his family in mind, and always willing and wanting to help out with whatever he could. He always took care of us. No matter how he may have felt, my grandfather was always strong and cared more for his family than anything else. Personally, he did a lot for me. As a kid, he always took care of me and babysat me when my mom was working or away. He'd take me to karate classes and help me with schoolwork when I needed. As I got older, he was always there and willing to drive me where I needed to go and help me with my car issues as I got my license. He has always been around to help all of us, and he truly has been the backbone of this family. Grandpa, you did so much. We never thank you enough. You showed me what a great man should be, and I hope to be half the man you were someday. You can rest peacefully now, Grandpa. I love you so much.
Thank you, Bailey and McKenna. Next, I will ask that Adria and Alia Johnston please come up.
I'm Alia Johnston, and I am one of Greg's grandchildren. I'm so happy that my sister and I got the chance to live so close to our grandparents. Whenever we needed them, they were always right there ready to help. I remember the countless of times where I was sick, throwing up everywhere, and I would go over to Grandpa and Grandma's. They would take care of me no matter how gross it was, and also while knowing that they could catch the flu too. Sorry. I've always been known to be the outgoing girl who never stops talking. So most of the time I spent with my grandpa, I would be talking his ear off. He'd always just sit there and listen to everything I had to say, even though in his head he was probably couldn't stop thinking about how he wanted me to stop talking. Although 95% of my stories were probably pointless, he never pushed me away, because he loved me and cherished our time together. I remember every time that we would gather at Grandma and Grandma's house for supper and there was still dessert to eat, nobody would be hungry enough for it, so Grandpa would look at me and say, "I know you want it." Because I was always the one that saved room for dessert. All the smiles, little jokes and comments, and laughter is what made my time with my grandpa memorable.
My name is Adria Johnston, and I'm one of the grandchildren. Some of my fondest memories of my grandpa were from early childhood, during my time in elementary school. Without fail, he would walk me to and from Dieppe every day, granting us the time to chat and reminisce with one another about our day. Time we would otherwise have to fight for, what with two particular chatterboxes waiting for us at his house. Looking at you, Grandma and Alia. Without a doubt in my mind, I knew Grandpa would always be there for me. It was never a question that needed to be entertained. Ollie and I could be arriving at his doorstep in the dead of winter, soaked and shivering in our boots from a session of sledding in negative 30-degree weather, and we knew he would take care of us, albeit with a few well-earned wisecracks aimed in our direction. Visiting Grandma and Grandpa on weekends was among the highlights of my week. Grandpa always made an effort to ensure his grandchildren were never bored, whether it be setting the hot tub for us to soak in, assembling the volleyball net, or just helping his kids keep an eye on us as we played in the playhouse or on the play structure within the backyard, something he built just for us grandkids. Come supper time, Grandpa could be seen barbecuing up a storm, ensuring there was something for everyone's taste. And no, it's not burnt, it's barbecue. From bike tires to basketballs, if it needed inflating, we knew just where to go. From scraped knees to elbows, he was there. Living so close to Grandpa was a blessing that I will always cherish. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian Alia. And thank all of you for speaking. Beautifully done. Dad was so good with all of you. He was good with his own children, too. So many sports practices, school events, activities at home. For me, one memory stands out. When I was coming of age, I started to take up running. Dad wanted to encourage me, so he took up running too. He would train on his own, and I would train on my own. Then one day, he asked me to go running with him. I was pretty excited. We were out running through the neighborhood, gently pushing each other, Dad chatting away the whole time. After we had run for some time, Dad exclaimed, "Let's race to the end of the block." I agreed, and after a pause, Dad screamed, "Go!" And we dashed off side by side. I was running as hard as I could, the sidewalk disappearing beneath my feet. Before long, I realized that Dad had disappeared too, and he was no longer beside me. I ran until I reached the end of the block and stopped. Dad was still running behind me. I was very excited now. I had beat my dad, who was something of a god in my eyes. When Dad caught up to me waiting at the end of the block, no words were said. But I could tell he was a little upset. Maybe more than a little upset. We walked home together, very silent. My excitement had all but disappeared. The next time we ran a race, I lost. Darcy Roos was another of Dad's longtime close friends. There was hardly a story that Dad told that didn't involve Darcy. We are very grateful that Darcy pre-recorded a video message for this occasion. We will now go to that video.
I'm Darcy Roos, and Greg was my friend. First, let me express my sincere condolences to Cheryl and family on Greg's passing. I can't be with you today, but Danny has recorded my comments so they could be shared. And then to say what an honor and privilege it is to be asked to speak at Greg's celebration of life. While he was in hospital, Cheryl arranged for me to talk on the phone with Greg. It was a dire time, and Greg was telling me his future was short, and I was only able to listen, having little to say, not really knowing what to say. It was a short conversation and left me feeling that I needed to say more to my friend. So I sat down, I wrote a letter to him, which was read to him by the family just days before his passing. I'm so thankful he heard my words. I'm so sad that he's gone, but I can take some comfort in the knowledge that he knew what he meant to me over the years of our friendship. He meant more to me than can ever be said in a letter. I'd like to read my letter now. From my friend, Greg Johnston. This isn't meant to be a eulogy, more an expression of appreciation. An appreciation of my good friend, Greg Johnston, who is very ill and facing tough decisions. Greg, it's too emotional to talk directly to you about your condition and the immediate future. I so much wanted to visit you face to face, but that visit would be even more difficult, and with COVID, not even possible. So I'm putting my thoughts in written form with sadness in my heart. I just want to express my feelings to you. You have made a decision that I can totally understand, but that's the dilemma. Having a close, dear friend pass away suddenly is hard, but this is harder. Knowing your time is short, but having to wait it out, and being able to offer so little in the way of support. You have truly been a friend, one of my best friends for almost 50 years. Ever since we moved to Regina from Ontario in 1974, you and Cheryl, Pat and Norm, and Wayne Taylor took us in as Easterners and helped us become Westerners. Those times were the best of times. It seems that we have grown up together, or almost grew up, so many times that we acted like kids, doing irresponsible things, but that was the fun of it all. After all, we had wives to take care of responsible things. I recall that you introduced me to country music, real country music, something I would never have guessed I would like or even think to try. George Jones, Waylon and Willie and the Boys, and now it's still one of my favorite music genres. In the future, when I hear some of those tunes, I will remember you. You have always had a terrific sense of humor, easily finding something humorous to add to the conversation, injecting a joke to add to the levity of the moment. I think you are Yogi Berra's twin, a quick wit and quotes that made us laugh uncontrollably. And just like yogis, I will recall them forever and laugh again. We teamed up to curl for years and years. Financial Curling League, every club in the city, those late nights at the Wheat City, City Bonspiels, Molson House, out of town Bonspiels. It was always fun rooming with you. And I'll never forget those Wilkie trips. How did we survive them? Credit union events around the province. Teammates with Norm for all those years, like the three amigos. The winters were more survivable with our involvement in curling. Early on, I was able to convince you and Norm to take up golfing. I don't think it was your favorite, but you were always willing to participate. Remember the weekends at Tor Hill? 6 a.m., first group on the tee box, carrying a dozen beer to be opened on the first fairway. And your never to be forgotten tee shots that hit the overhead power lines twice in a row, and a third, a near miss. We howled, and we've howled about it over the years. Jan and I went on a Phoenix vacation with you and Cheryl, resulting in our love for Arizona. We continue to winter there in our retirement. In hindsight, we should have traveled more together. The Old Boys Club, such an enjoyable weekly get-together. Bitch about anything, everything, catch up, joke around, laugh. It won't be the same without you. But be assured, you will be talked about frequently. Dale, the chairman, may even let you start a peer group in heaven. You've always exemplified politeness and being easygoing, measured, calm, a voice of reason. Even now, faced with dire circumstances, you told me it is what it is. God knows we could use more of this kind of attitude in our society today. Although we have lost touch a bit over the last number of years, the long-term friendship remains. And when we talk or email or meet, it's like we haven't been apart at all. A very easy friendship and valued. It's so hard for me to communicate my feelings. What do you say? How do you say goodbye? I won't forget your friendship over the years. I consider you a brother, a member of my family. There have been so many memorable times that we shared over the years. Just thinking of them brings an immediate smile to my face. And now that I try to recall them, it's hard to do. But I know down the road they will flood back to me and I will smile again. And I will fondly remember how important you were to me and how much I will miss you. Greg, thank you for all the wonderful years knowing you and being my friend. That was my letter to Greg. I found some lyrics in a song that I'd like to share with you. I shared them with Greg, even though he wasn't the biggest fan of this artist, but he certainly knew the words and the sentiment. It's a song by George Jones, Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes? No, there will never be another red-headed stranger, a man in black and Folsom Prison Blues, the Okie from Muskogee, or Hello Darling. Lord, I wonder who's gonna fill their shoes. Or Greg Johnston, Lord, I wonder who's gonna fill his shoes. Who's gonna fill their shoes? Who's gonna stand that tall? Who's gonna give their heart and soul to get to me and you? Lord, I wonder who's gonna fill Greg's shoes. Greg, I will miss you forever. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Darcy, for taking the time to write that wonderful letter and to record that heartfelt message for this occasion. I would next like to invite Christy up to the podium to share some thoughts about Dad. Christy.
It's incredibly hard to put into words what my dad meant to me. He was a knight in shining armor. As a little girl, I would run to the door to meet my daddy as he came home from work. He would call me Susie Q, and I would wrap my arms around him. My dad wasn't a pour his heart out kind of man. He was a humble man. However, not ever in my life did I not know how much he loved me. He had a way of making sure you were aware without needing to say the words. Dad had a way of saying things that never left me. I was a teenager when he told me his family meant everything to him. Things weren't perfect, but his family was something he would never give up on. As a very young adult, he said to me, "My girl, everyone has to go through so much in life. You're just getting it over with all at once." There were years of heartache to come, but I never forgot those words that got me through it all. My dad was not only a grandpa to my kids, he was a stand-in dad. He would meet them after school, feed them for lunch, usually pancakes, drive them places, and meet school buses. I was a single parent, and Dad would answer and respond to every call. The calls crying as there was a huge spider in my bathroom, a dead bird outside my window. The dog got outside the gate, and we needed help finding him. The list could go on and on. Dad was my hero to the rescue. Dad's last week in the hospital, he told me he didn't like that I would never let him help me. This upset me. I wouldn't take money, but the amount of help I received is beyond words. The amount of things my dad did for me is more than I can speak about. My dad was there to listen when I'd have a breakdown. I'd call him, unable to speak, and he would just know it was a rough day. He would have a way of calming me and reassuring me that I was strong and capable of moving forward. Every person in life deserves a hero. I got mine, and that was my dad. The first night I was allowed back to see my dad in the hospital, I arrived in tears. A nurse sat and talked to me. We knew all treatment had stopped, and she talked to me about the process. She then said he was sleeping soundly at the moment. As she went to open the sliding glass door, she turned and looked at me and said, "He's suddenly wide awake. It's like he knew you were here." That night he talked to me about his favorite movies, his friends, his parents, things he had never shared with me. I'll never forget the things he said. On his last night with us, I was able to spend a couple of hours alone with him. I told him he had done his work. He could let go as he taught us all and showed his love. I gave him permission to go as we couldn't watch him suffer any longer. He passed away the next morning. Thank you, Dad, for molding me into the person I am, for loving me, and for teaching us all how much family means. I will miss you every single day, and I will live my life in hopes of making you proud. Love you always, my sweet, precious Dad. You're forever Daddy's little girl.
Thank you, Christy. You expressed so honestly how so many of us felt about Dad. Well, at this point of the program, I would like to introduce a video tribute to Dad. Dad was always camera shy, but Mom managed to sneak up on him, meaning terrify the shit out of him, with a video camera, often enough over the years to leave us with some moving images that we can all cherish. The following tribute contains some raw home video of some very special moments with Dad. I think viewing this will help you all understand just a little more why we love Dad so much. Take my cue and keep the tissue close by. We will go to the video now.
She's coming.
Oh my. Oh. It's good. You have to wait for anything.
Did you make it? Hold on, you burnt your finger.
You just make it, grandma, then grandma bought the cake, and then we started decorating.
Oh.
Bailey McKenna, cheers!
Cheese!
How about a nicely say cheese?
Cheese!
Oh, get in there.
Wait, no.
Okay, ready?
Rainbow game.
Go back
Okay.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Grandpa Bailey. Happy birthday to you. Make a wish. Everyone blow. 1, 2, 3.
Good job.
Oh, Bailey, can you get that one? Oh, Kenna. She's gonna smile.
Have you been before?
That's what you always wanted, eh?
Were you expecting that?
Oh, I wasn't expecting you. Where's the tree? Oh, is that under the tree?
A taste of it!
Taste it. Oh!
Woo!
There you go, Christy. Who's hitting you, huh?
Yeah!
What was it?
A taste of it.
If that micro is not correct, if it's not the right quality of ink, not the right quality of paper, or if the spacing on those on the micro encoding is not correct, it won't read, and those items will all be rejected.
Yeah, he said it, Bill. That's it. It's a bill.
So now, we get to go now?
Okay, you want to draw? Yeah. Yeah, then good. We all draw. We all have to draw? Yeah. What? You know what's wrong?
Hey, I still got my ring this morning, even though I look like a granny.
Hey, it's the instruction book. Maybe we should look at it. Yeah.
I'll try that.
That's always a last resort, but extend the transmitter antenna.
Is there any others?
Turn off on to on. That's a good idea. We should do
Here,
that.
right here. If I turn it off to on, there. I forgot to turn it off.
Turn it on. Always works.
Feel better, Greg?
This is McKenna's big bag here.
Stop, I made this. No!
Okay, just wait.
Is that extra large?
Extra large?
What are you doing?
We're gonna
Oh, yeah.
a little carried away, I think.
Well, let's come after that.
Oh,
For the computer.
yeah. That's really,
Thank you.
That's really good. Too.
Yeah,
That's just kind of a little add-on.
that's nice. Thank you. Oh, I like
Other
those.
blue cheese.
Oh, nice. Those are nice ones.
Let's see.
Doesn't quite match.
Real serious
Yeah.
champions. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
it.
very much. I thought of these. I like.
Let's see.
No, I like.
Something to remember.
I like these ones.
Because next year it's downhill.
Thank you.
Did you hear what Danny said?
He likes
Next year is downhill.
A 1986 movie, which was the first one to have a commercial in front of it. Oh, Top Gun. I'm just looking like, who the hell would know that? Ooh, can I play with it?
Of course.
Bush. Well, that's pretty neat.
Thanks. Is it? I thought you might want an electric train for Christmas one
Want to
day.
bring back your youth.
I always wanted one.
it is a little difficult to continue with the program after viewing that. But I do have a few final comments to make before we close. I would like to address a few words to you, Mom. I know this has been the worst of times for you. You have managed this as you always have, with strength, focus, and a quiet resolve. But you can relax, at least for a little bit, and take a breath now. Dad was always concerned that you were well taken care of. It was his life's mission. Well, that and chasing a curling championship, but it was the much more important mission, and it was mission accomplished. Mom, please take a break from training for the next Olympic Games and stop and smell the roses. You've earned that. Darcy earlier asked the question, who will fill Dad's shoes? I will. And Christy. And your grandchildren. And your family and many friends. Together it will be a challenge to be all that Dad was, but we will be your support when you need us. Take a look around you. Everyone in this room, and many outside it, have your back. I hope you take comfort in that. Not long before Dad passed, late at night, between long stays at the hospital, unable to sleep once again, I was suddenly overcome with a desire to put into words how much Dad meant to me, while he may still be able to read them. I desperately etched out the following and texted them to Dad before I fell into a hard but limited sleep. Here's what I sent to him. Dad, you have been the counsel in my times of confusion. You have been the support in my moments of need. You have been the muse when my inspiration waned. You have been the cool arbiter when we disagreed. I will want to sit with you over one more coffee. I will want to hear your voice just one more time. I will want to see the spark of life in your eyes. I will want to turn to you once again for the sublime. The color in my world will be more ashen without you. The darkness far more difficult to face. Somehow, I will summon the spirit you gave me and try to go on in a much more barren place. But I won't let you down. Your son, Danny. I wasn't sure Dad was able to read the words at this point, let alone text a reply. But a reply I got early the next morning. The reply read simply, "So beautiful." Dad's presence in all of our lives was beautiful. And so are the memories, as painful as they are right now. We will move on without him, knowing we will never be the same. Dad was our rock, our guiding light, and our voice of reason. Each one of us must now summon all that Dad passed on to us and continue on, knowing that he had taken us as far as he could. I know each of you won't let him down. A little known fact about Dad is that he loved poetry. I would like to end with an excerpt from a famous Walt Whitman poem that seemed appropriate for the occasion. My captain does not answer. His lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm. He has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored, safe and sound, in voyage closed and done. From fearful trip, the victor ship comes in with object won. Goodbye, Dad. On behalf of the family, I'd like to thank all of you for being a part of our celebration today. Take care.